This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast brought to you by Agriland and AXA, keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined by Aisling O'Brien and our dairy specialist, Hugh Harney. Well, there's no debating what the main news of the week is. This week, Minister for Agriculture Martin Hayden came forward with an official proposal of measures to address the very worrying trends in TB over recent years. These proposals came out of stakeholder engagement earlier in the year and the Minister's securing of Cabinet approval to put forward new measures to address TB. We found out what those measures are this week, and Aisling, there's a lot of detail here, but can you take us through the most important points?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Charles, I don't need to list any figures here because the farmers who have been affected by TB, particularly in the last year or two, know all too well. Last year, we saw over 6,000 farms affected by a TB outbreak. Herd incidence at the end of last year was just over 6%. That's up from 4.31% in 2022. As we've often said here on the Farming Week, when it comes to TB, everything has been going in the wrong direction. And despite that, we spent just over €100 million on the bovine TB programme, the national programme last year, and it's set to far eclipse that this year from what we were told this week as well. Now, the Minister's plan basically is built around 5 main measures. So essentially those measures are supporting herds to be free of TB to remain free, to reduce the impact of wildlife on the spread of bovine TB, to detect and eliminate bovine TB infection as early as possible in herds with a breakdown and to avoid a future breakdown, to help farmers to improve in all areas of on-farm biosecurity and to reduce the impact of known high-risk animals in spreading the disease as well. So we were told this week by Minister Hayden that these measures are aiming to target both transmission between wildlife and cattle and transmission between cattle as well. And these 5 high-level measures are going to be underpinned by some 30 different actions. Now, as you rightly said, Charles, it's quite an in-depth plan in some respects, and I'm not going to go through all of the 30 different actions, and perhaps we'll speak in more detail about proposed animal movement changes shortly with Hugh. But just some of the standout measures in terms of supporting herds that are free of TB to remain. So the Minister's plan says that female breeding cattle aged over 18 months that have been present in high-risk breakdowns will be identified at sale. That will allow farmers to make informed choices when buying their replacements. They're also going to be rolling out a national breeding policy which will support the AI industry to increase the number of dairy bulls with genetic resistance to TB. When it comes to wildlife, only healthy badgers are going to be vaccinated, while infected badgers will be removed from vaccination areas. And also there'll be more wildlife operatives to be deployed to carry out at least 2 surveys and capture sweeps each year in vaccination and cull areas. We're also being told that there'll be a bespoke approach developed for areas with high incidence rates of bovine TB, and a financial assistance package will be brought forward to help farmers to improve on-farm badger biosecurity. The Minister said they'll also continue to work with the deer management stakeholder group on the ground as well. As we know, there's various hotspots and control units that are being developed right across the country under that group as well. Now, the plan aims to detect and eliminate infection of TB as early as possible with herds with a breakdown, and to avoid these future breakdowns through a number of actions. And one of those is mandatory GIF, which is gamma interferon testing. It's a blood test essentially, and it helps to identify hidden or residual infection. And I suppose what we're being told here is there'd be mandatory GIF testing for larger herds. So we're breeding herds with 80 cows or more will require this GIF testing if 5% of the exposed cohort, which is animals in the same management group, or 10 animals, whichever is fewer, test positive. So that in those instances, there will be mandatory GIF testing. Now, so for herds then with a repeat high-risk breakdown, they will undergo 6 monthly herd testing for 3 years after restrictions are lifted. That is in order to help detect and eliminate residual infection in the herds. And then I suppose in terms of biosecurity, we're being told that farmers will be offered free veterinary advice through the Targeted Advisory Service on Animal Health with their vets. And for all high-risk breakdowns, tailored risk mitigation plans are going to be developed as well. And they will be used to identify specific biosecurity and purchasing actions on farms to prevent future outbreaks. Now, we're being told in the plan as well, Charles, that full compliance with biosecurity requirements will be enforced for controlled finishing units, CFUs, dealer herds, and related herd numbers. And we're being told that restrictions will apply across all linked herd numbers when a dealer or associated herd is restricted. Now, we've been covering it here on Agriland about these special sales of cull cows from restricted herds. That's been taking place in several marts across the country. And they will be facilitated by marts as well. And there may be some expansion to that too. But of course, that will all take place under very strict biosecurity controls as well. So, Charles, they're just some of the 30 measures that the Minister is putting forward to, I suppose, curb the spread of TB and to turn the tide on this scourge of a disease.
And of course, one of the most important aspects of TB control and eradication that impacts farmers is movement restrictions. And for more on this, we're going to bring in our dairy specialist, Hugh. So, Hugh, what changes are being proposed in this new plan from the Minister?
So, the new TB requirements for animal movements, Charles, are that cows of all ages and males over 36 months of age that are moving from farm to farm or through a mart must be TB tested in the last 6 months. They must also be moving from a herd that has been tested in the last 6 months, and if they do not fulfill both these requirements, they must then be tested either within the 30 days prior to movement or within 30 days after movement into the new herd. Animals that require a test in the 30 days after the movement will be restricted immediately to the herd into which they are moved, and this herd will have 30 days to carry out a test on these animals. If the farmer fails then to test these animals within the 30 days, the herd that received them will be restricted. But the sale of calves under 6 weeks of age and the purchase in of animals will still be permitted. However, if after another 60 days the animals have still not been tested, the whole herd will be scheduled for a TB test. If the moved in animal at any point is then slaughtered, the restriction will be lifted, except where the herd has been listed for a full test already. So, look, this is just to facilitate the opportunity for cull cows to be purchased, fed, and then slaughtered without incurring that extra cost of testing. So, yeah, as I said, the sale of calves then under 6 weeks of age and purchase in will continue to be facilitated up until the day before the test is due. Farmers either selling or buying animals can time their annual herd test to coincide with the sale or purchase of these animals. And if farmers wish to reschedule their annual herd test to an earlier date to facilitate the sale or purchase of animals, they are urged by the department to contact the regional veterinary office. Additionally, if they want to postpone their annual herd test to a later date to coincide with sale or purchase of animals, they must contact the regional veterinary office before the due date of the test. So farmers may be allowed to postpone their annual herd test for up to a maximum of 3 months.
And obviously, Hugh, these restrictions will have a big impact on the dairy sector. So what's been the reaction to these plans from dairy farmers on the ground?
So yeah, I suppose, Charles, farming as a whole, not just dairy farmers, but the feeling is that the action plan is very firm on farmers, but doesn't really highlight the specific targets to deal with concerns of deer and badgers, as no intense culling of deer and badgers in badly impacted TB outbreak areas has been included. While a lot of measures and actions are welcomed, farmers feel that the rules being applied to them are not being applied to other stakeholders in the industry. Another thing the farmers would have liked to see is a rise in the compensation ceilings to take into account of the increased value of livestock. The value ceilings of €3,000 and €5,000 are quite outdated by now, and the reality is that more animals are exceeding the limits, which leaves farmers out of pocket at a time when they are actually at their lowest. And like anyone who is in dairy or beef, whether it's pedigree breeding or not, they will know the work, effort, time and money it takes to build up a herd's genetics, and for that just to be stripped away and for them to not get paid fairly for it is quite a concern.
Thanks for that, Hugh. Well, of course, these proposals are likely to require additional money to put them into action. But that's one area where we're going to have to wait for more detail, according to Minister Hayden. So what did the Minister have to say about that, Aisling?
Yeah, that's correct, Charles, because Minister Hayden said that, this document has followed, as you said, extensive discussions at the TB Forum, along with meetings with farm organisations and other stakeholders in recent months. And he did say that he was very aware of the emotional and financial impacts of bovine TB on farmers, on their families and on rural Ireland as well. But as the famous line in that Jerry Maguire movie goes, Charles, show me the money. So the minister said this week that the funding allocations for these revamped measures are still being negotiated. He didn't confirm how much he's seeking for the TB programme in Budget 2026, which will be coming up in early October. And he did say that to the end of July this year, some €61 million has been spent on the national TB programme. And he said he was currently in budget negotiations, as all other government ministers are at Cabinet. And he said he's been engaging with the Department of Public Expenditure on the significance of the new TB measures and the need for funding in order to get back on the road to eradication of the disease. And he said he'll be engaging with that department on all elements of his budget over the coming weeks, right up till October 7th, when Budget 2026 is announced. Now, Hugh mentioned there about farmer compensation, Charles, and that is a bone of contention out there at the moment. But the minister said that it's not likely to be increased, as other measures towards eradication will be the focus of funding received for the TB programme. And here is some of what Minister Hayden had to say to Agriland's Kathleen O'Sullivan about funding all of these new measures.
The interventions I make now will lead to, in the short term, over the next year or two, an increase in the amount of reactors, which, when you consider compensation, different measures, will have a cost implication. But it absolutely is a wise investment to make, because ultimately, once we reach that point of stabilisation in the coming years, you then will see a significant drop and a downward trajectory in the amount of instances of reactors. And in that space, we then can talk about eradication again.
That was Minister Martin Hayden speaking there. And finally, just before we leave the TB, Aisling, what has been the reaction to these proposals from the stakeholders that you mentioned, the farm orgs and so on?
Yes, Charles, we have some initial reaction from farm organisations. Now, aspects of this new action plan may be familiar to the farm organisations, because we had that emergency TB summit earlier in the year, where the Department of Agriculture outlined some proposals which have made its way into this plan. So the Irish Farmers Association President Francie Gorman said that the action plan contained some positive aspects, but he said that some measures would be tough on farmers where their herds fail a TB test. And he said that support schemes under the TB programme would have to be reviewed to ensure that they're fit for purpose before any additional controls or restrictions could be imposed on farmers. Now, the ICMSA President Dennis Drennan said that the plan was lopsided in his opinion, and he said that there are actions and requirements that are very firm on farmers, but they're very flimsy on everyone else. He said that there was some vague commitments and that the programme lacked clear targets and timelines as well. And he said while the new proposals on wildlife were welcome, there was no specific targets or timeframes to deal with farmer concerns in relation to deer and badgers as well. Now, we also got reaction from ICOS, which is the Irish Cooperative Organisation Society, representing 130 co-ops, including dairy processors and livestock marts across the country. Ray Doyle from the organisation said that they believed the successful implementation of this plan is going to depend on striking the right balance between effective disease control and maintaining fair, workable conditions for farm families as well. He said that, measures to expand those cull cow sales, those special sales at marts, would help to alleviate one of the most immediate challenges that farmers face when their herds are restricted. But he also said that ICOS is going to need further clarity from the Minister on mart sales and movements through marts over the coming weeks as well.
Well, we'll move on from TB now, and recent research from Teagasc has painted a fairly stark picture of what the future of the dairy sector would look like without a nitrates derogation in place. Aisling, what's contained in that new Teagasc research?
Yeah, absolutely. So Minister Martin Hayden recently received 5 research papers from Teagasc, I suppose, which are all going to inform Ireland's negotiations with the EU Commission. Ireland is actually due to appear before the EU's Nitrates Committee on September 19th, presenting our case for renewal of the nitrates derogation prior to a vote, which we understand could take place in December, but it may go into next year, depending on how those negotiations go, I suppose, Charles. But back to that Teagasc research, and one of the papers is entitled Environmental and Economic Modelling of the Impact of Adjustments in the Maximum Stocking Rates Permitted under Ireland's Nitrates Derogation. So the research found that around half of dairy farms in Ireland and 65% of national milk production was produced on farms that have an organic nitrogen stocking rate greater than that threshold of 170 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. So if the 7,609 farms that avail of the derogation were required to reduce down to that 170 limit, this would require an average reduction of 27 cows per herd and would result in an average reduction of €43,555 in family farm incomes on those farms. That's a drop of some 40% in farm incomes. And that's if it was only achieved by reducing cow numbers only. And if this did come to pass, this modelling shows that nationally we would need a reduction of some 203,000 cows, which is 14% of the national herd, and a reduction in national milk production of 1.2 billion litres as well. So it is very, very stark, and there's more detail on Agriland on our website and app. This research really does lay bare, Charles, the impact, that we all are aware of losing Ireland's nitrates derogation. And the IFA Dairy Committee Chair Martin McIlerney said that the findings of the research were frightening. He said it was stark reading, definitely, for sure. And he said that no business could sustain cuts that were outlined in that research. And I suppose he again appealed to the government to put every effort into retaining our nitrates derogation. Look, the report also states, when it comes to maybe farmers trying to comply with the nitrates, we've already seen what it's done to the land market. But if all of those dairy farms in derogation did seek to rent land to, I suppose, maintain their current cow numbers, they'd actually require an extra 113,000 hectares, which is around the size of County Kildare. So you can imagine what that would do to the land market on top of the pressure that's already there, Charles. But definitely a very sobering read, and a lot more detail on it on our website and app.
Just while we're on dairy, we'll just briefly let you know that the dairy processors have begun announcing their milk prices for August. Lakeland Dairies has announced that it will reduce its milk price to farmers for August, confirming a price of 47.25 cent per litre in the Republic of Ireland and 38.3 pence per litre in Northern Ireland. Both prices are a reduction of 1 cent or 1 pence per litre. Farmers should also be aware that the closing date for application of chemical fertiliser is approaching. The closed period for spreading chemical fertiliser begins on September 15th, which is Monday, and the closed period will be in place until January 26th. But after talking about TB and the nitrates derogation, we'll move on now to some slightly better news, which is that revised costings for the Targeted Agricultural Modernisation Scheme have finally been announced. Aisling, what are the details?
Yes, Charles. So applications for tranche 10 of TAMS 3 opened yesterday, September 10th, and they're going to close on December 5th. So many farmers will be asking advisors to fill out their application forms as normal. But if you want to submit your own application, we have some advice on that on Agriland at the moment. So ahead of tranche 10 opening, Minister Martin Hayden confirmed that the reference costs associated with TAMS had been revised by the department following a thorough review, and in recent years farm organisations had urged the department to revise those costs in light of increased construction costs right across the board. Now, the revised reference costs will be in place for all eligible applications submitted under tranche 10, and the majority of reference costs have been increased when compared to the previous list from February 2023. Now, the full list, along with explanatory notes, relevant department specs and everything like that, it's all on the DAFM website. But we also have several stories this week on Agriland outlining some of the costings. And in the list, the department have provided a tool to calculate reference costs for silage and effluent tanks. We have an article on that as well if you want to check that out, if that's some of the projects that you are looking at. The department has also updated its guidance rates in relation to the use of an applicant's own machinery on a TAMS project, whether that might be your tractor or anything else that you might be using as part of it. And the revised costs also include an increase in the valuation of a farmer's own labour during construction of a TAMS approved project. And the document states that direct constructional work by the applicant or the applicant's family member should be valued at €16.74 an hour. That's up from €15.52 an hour in February of 2023. So labour is not included in the rates for machinery under TAMS 3 and should be claimed under own labour as appropriate. And the department said it will determine the amount of investment eligible for grant aid when the work is completed and a valid claim is submitted for payment. And as always, the department has reminded farmers that grant aid will not be paid where works begin without the department's prior written approval. So wait for your approval before you break ground.
Moving on now, and this week saw the announcement of the FBD Young Farmer of the Year, with the winner being announced at the Killishy Hotel in Naas. And I understand, Aisling, it was a win for dairy farmers this year.
Yes, that's true. Aileen Sheehan from Cork claimed the prestigious title at the awards ceremony, which took place at the Killishy Hotel in Naas on Tuesday night. She's actually the first woman, Charles, to be named FBD Young Farmer of the Year. She milks 140 dairy cows on a totally leased farm, managing 28 in-calf heifers and 24 calves as replacements. She began farming in December 2021 after leasing a dairy unit in Cork, purchasing a herd and starting milk supply. And then in 2023, she introduced her own heifers and now runs the enterprise with her husband while raising their 6-month-old baby, if she wasn't busy enough. And the farm is supported by 3 part-time staff as well and has a strong focus on sustainability, we learned. And alongside farming, Aileen teaches PE and maths, and her husband serves in the army. And they're no stranger to awards. They actually won the Dairy Gold Milk Quality and Sustainability Award this year as well. So after being named FBD Young Farmer of the Year, Aileen caught up with Agriland technical beef specialist Breffney O'Brien. Here's some of what she had to say.
Absolutely unbelievable. Never in my wildest dreams would I have expected to be here. Never in my wildest dreams 3 years ago would I have been dairy farming. But to see where we've come from and where we are now, and to see the trajectory of it.
And so much so that you were saying just this evening that you didn't tell anyone you were coming here tonight.
No, I suppose I wanted to concentrate on the job itself. It was a big challenge for me to be here. It was a big challenge to me and the interview panels, and knew the people that I had to, display my knowledge to. So I just wanted to concentrate on my job, and brought my husband. He's a massive support. I wouldn't be here without him. Brought my mother-in-law to mind the baby, and that was it.
So that was Aileen Sheehan there, Charles, the FBD Young Farmer of the Year. And Aileen was joined on the finalists list by Amy Coonan from Tipperary, Brian Fitzpatrick from Carlow, David Herity from Mayo, Isaac Wheelock from Wexford, and Sarah Kelly from Sligo. So well done to all of them. And there was a range of other awards presented on the night as well. And you can find full details on our website and app. Well done to everybody, and in particular, Aileen Sheehan.
Well, just before we come to our last item for today, we'll just bring you some final news updates. There's been some changes at the helm of ABP, with John Maloney stepping down as chair of the company after 5 years. His place will be taken by Lawrence P. Goodman, who has been a director since 2021. Elsewhere, a conference on the future of farming in County Clare is being held in Ennis tomorrow, Friday. The event is being organised by Clare TD Joe Cooney and will feature Minister for Agriculture Martin Hayden and representatives from several farm organisations and bodies. So that's sure to be an informative event, so stay tuned to Agriland's coverage of it on Friday. And another important meeting is taking place tomorrow in Naas. This is a tillage crisis meeting, which is being organised by the IFA, with Minister Hayden expected to make it to the event in the evening after his earlier engagement in Clare. And of course, Agriland will be reporting on that event as well. But speaking of tillage, we can't let this week's podcast go without of course talking about the 2025 National Ploughing Championships. Aisling, it's hard to believe that this time next week it'll be almost done and dusted, but what can farmers and readers and listeners of Agriland look forward to?
Yeah, the excitement is really building now, Charles. We're packing up the wellies and the sunscreen to allow for all eventualities when it comes to the weather, but hopefully we won't need those wellies. So it all kicks off in Screggan in Tullamore on Tuesday, and it of course will run Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Around 350 competitors will be taken to the ploughing fields, battling it out for those prestigious national titles. But aside from the ploughing, there is plenty to entertain people as always. There's going to be a huge amount of trade stands. We're going to have an increased amount of livestock on site this year. There's going to be machineries and tractors galore if you like kicking tires. There's lots to see there. There'll be fashion shows, live music. If you want to get the dancing shoes going, Charles, there's plenty of opportunities as well at the Ploughing for that, bit of jiving. If the people are interested in brown bread, the best bakers in the country will be there showing off their skills to be named the best brown bread baker in Ireland. The fittest people in the country as well will be battling it out to be named either Ireland's fittest farmers or fittest sports clubs. There's going to be innovations galore, lots of new ideas and innovations in the agri world and beyond. And of course, there'll be experts aplenty across all of the different stands as well to discuss everything on your farm. And of course, there'll be politicians, a lot of politicians, Charles. Of course, President Michael D. Higgins, it's going to be his last time at the National Ploughing Championships in his role as president. And no doubt, the presidential hopefuls, we have confirmation, of course, Jim Gavin will be on the ticket, Heather Humphreys, Catherine Connolly. There could be others joining them as well, depending on how the county council routes go over the coming weeks. The election, of course, is happening on October 24th, and no doubt the parties will all be out in force supporting their candidates as well. And of course, outside of the presidential hopefuls, we will have politicians, the ministers will be there from the Department of Agriculture. And of course, they're going to be pressed by the farm organisations and the media alike about the upcoming budget and what farmers need from that. The Agriland tent, we're right in the middle of the site. You won't be able to miss us. So we're block 3, row 10, stand 223. But if you go to the centre of the site, you will find Agriland there, and we're going to have plenty to entertain you. We're going to have people on the stage talking about various aspects of farming. There may be some familiar faces, some famous faces perhaps turning up as well. If you can't make it, we are going to be live streaming from the site between 12 and 3 every day. So there is no reason why you can't get a flavour of the atmosphere, whether you're there in person in Screggan or online as well. And look, if you are going along, there's obviously going to be tens of thousands of people going along every day. There is going to be a traffic plan. Obviously, Screggan, we're returning to a new site this year, and there is a traffic plan that the Guards and the National Ploughing Association have details. So stay tuned to Agriland, because there's different colour coded routes from depending on where you're coming from as well. And look, don't forget, if you're bringing along some smallies as well, the keeping you safe child wristbands, that'll be returning to the Ploughing this year. There'll be about 40,000 safety wristbands that'll be handed out at the Ploughing this year as well. And it'll allow space for a phone number, because it is a very busy place, Charles. So it's just that extra layer of reassurance as well when you have a small people in tow at the Ploughing. But we hope everybody who goes along to the Ploughing has an absolutely brilliant time, and we look forward to seeing you there. Make sure you call into the Agriland stand. We'll have plenty going on over the 3 days for sure, and safe travels to everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a terrific 3 days, Aisling, but I think I might leave the jiving to fitter people than myself now, to be honest. Just before we go, the fourth part of Agriland's Farm Safe, Farm Well series is now live on our site and app. In the latest episode, we speak to former IFA President Eddie Downey, who in 2021 was working in a shed on his farm when he fell 12 feet onto the concrete below. So if you want to hear about Eddie's experience and the safety advice he has for farmers, be sure to check it out on Agriland's website and app. But that's it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Aisling, Hugh and myself, take care.
This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.